Good afternoon. I'm Dilip Thakore, editor of Education World.
Good afternoon. This is Summiya Yasmeen, managing editor.
In the June monsoon issue of Education World, we've got two crackling cover stories for you on very important subjects. One is on the
Yes, the cover story is on a exciting report done by a Hyderabad-based investment consulting and advisory firm called LoEstro. They're predicting a bright future for Indian K-12 education. We'll tell you more about it a bit
particularly of
later.
private schools.
Yes.
LoEstro predicts a bright future for private school education in India.
Yes.
And in our second lead story, we've held the first retreat, education leadership retreat, held in the Himalayan foothills of Kasauli, where some 70 people attended.
Yes.
And school leaders from all over the country who were addressed and schooled in leadership themselves, because a good school can't produce good leaders unless the leaders themselves are on the ball.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll tell you more about it a bit later when we come to these stories. But before that, Dilip, should we tell our readers what we've got in store? It's
Yes.
an information-packed issue, so
Correct.
there's much to discuss over the next 15 minutes. So in our editorial section, again, two hard-hitting edits. The first one is agenda for the new central government. Remember, the issue came out in the first week of June. We didn't know who had won, but it applies to everyone, whichever government won. So we've got an agenda for the new central government where we tell them that, invest, make your top priorities health and education.
Invest in human resource
Yes.
development. Somehow all our great economists, many of them gone to the World Bank and others, don't seem to understand the simple proposition. If you have a country where 300 million people are illiterate, and then a whole 10 to 12 million joining that force who are only quasi-illiterate, there's no way you're going to become a middle-class developed country. Anyway, that's our first edit.
Second edit, very interesting.
Also related.
Yes, also related, but one would say not technically qualifies as an education subject, right? Well.
Yes.
Yeah.
About where we muse about India's prolonged inventions drought. Why has, despite our turning out 1 million plus engineers every year, we've never turned out a socket to a kind of invention or a product? The internet, cell phone, jet planes, everything's come out of other countries. How come nothing's come out of India?
Yes.
So we look.
No, very thought-provoking.
Causes and effects.
Yeah, very thought-provoking edit. We'd love your comments on how India can end its inventions drought. Education news section, again, we've covered basically the whole country between education news and education notes. Interesting education news from Delhi this time, Dilip, on how the criteria for admission into PhD programs has been changed by UGC.
Yes.
Now students who complete the FYUP, which is the 4-year undergrad program, are eligible for direct entry into PhD programs. Not necessarily they should have completed a master's program.
Yeah. So is this a good thing or a bad thing? That's what we discuss.
Yes.
Second is chaos and confusion in Karnataka continued. This time around, it's all about
the latest mess, which is the out of syllabus questions in the PUC exams, and the really dismal class 10 state board SLC results, where the pass percentage has fallen by 23%.
Yes.
And in all this
and on top of that is CET, right?
Yes, the CET mess, and on top of all this, there is a lot of anger among educators, is because the education minister has been MIA, missing in action.
Yes.
So a very interesting story again there. West Bengal, Banerjee's burden,
which is the teacher recruitment scam going on since the year 2011 when she was first elected.
Yes, indeed. And in Uttar Pradesh, which is India's largest state, we are happy to report that we have a story this time.
Yes.
And there is the medical education, mess about how medical colleges in UP are bypassing the National Commission of Medicine rules, regulations, and how they're being fined petty amounts which they really don't care about.
Yes,
So
exactly.
again, quite a interesting and stimulating news from there. And of course, in our education notes section, we've covered states like Tripura, Manipur, Assam, Jharkhand, etc.
Snippets from them,
Yes.
yes, but nevertheless interesting.
Yeah.
And likewise, education briefs, we covered the corporate sector and doing what are they doing in education. Then Rajiv Desai, a regular columnist with us, he's written about his interpretation of the election results. This came out a day after the election results. Is that it's been a resounding lesson from the marginalized poor to the Modi administration, which I think we all agree has been mainly focused on the middle class and has perhaps ignored the others.
Young achievers are two young inventors, Dilip. So there's hope for the country. The inventions drought. So I think this is the right way some young achievers are going, and these two have done very interesting eco-friendly inventions, which we hope will be further developed and perhaps commercialized into products.
Yes, we hope. We write on many of these, but then after that we never hear about their commercialization.
Yeah.
Then our cover story. And the new report produced by LoEstro Hyderabad is titled State of India K to 12 Resilience Amidst Uncertainties.
Yes.
To 24 report. And it predicts a bright future for private school education.
Yes. A very interesting report where they talk about, out of the total 1.5 million schools, they talk about how many are in the private sector, how many are in aided. And the whole focus of the report, like Dilip correctly said, is, on how growing internationalization of Indian school education, the K-12 education sector, is benefiting. In fact, a rising tide is lifting all boats.
Yes. And our interpretation of the report is, we have not merely reproduced the report, we've given an interpretation and invited comments from experts and others. Our interpretation is that perhaps rising standards in private schools will prompt or push a similar movement in government schools.
Yes, and there are very interesting charts we've got, which we've carefully curated from the report, which is over 70 pages, on tech adoption in schools, how international schools are growing now. Say, for example, Cambridge affiliated schools now over 650 in the country, and this growth has happened just over the past 3-4 years. There's also a very interesting table talking about which are the big international school chains that have entered into India.
Yes, yes. Of course, left liberals will probably start yelling and screaming that the internationalization of education is not a good thing, and foreign companies coming into India is not a good thing. But look, we live in a globalized world now. If you want to compete with other countries, we have to raise standards in our schools. And merely going on the way we've been going on for the last 75 years is not going to help. We have to upgrade and internationalize our own education. So our children who come out of these schools can then compete internationally.
Absolutely.
If they're going to learn only Indian economics and Indian education, then they're not going to be able to.
No, and interestingly, the report also has an entire chapter on regulation, on school regulation. So I think that's be quite interesting for especially people in the education sector, school sector, who want to start new schools.
Yes.
The section on what is the ease of operating schools.
Yes, indeed. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we recommend our cover story, especially to private schools, so our main readers. I regret to say, though we'd love to have government schools as our readers, but I think we haven't got there yet. Most of our readers and subscribers are private schools.
Absolutely.
So this will be of great interest to them.
Yeah. And of course, in our people section, we've got some very accomplished, talented, interesting people profiled. one among whom is Shreyas Bhandari, who is the co-founder of the Heritage School.
All-girls school.
Yes, all-girls
Udaipur.
school. But he's if you read the people section, you'll know he's very multi-talented. He's also a photographer. He's an ornithologist, etc.
But the good thing is he introduced all those skills and passions of his into the curriculum of the school. So this makes that school quite unique.
Yes. So again, people doing, I think, our people section is very interesting because it tells our readers that there are many interesting things happening in Indian education, and all for the better. All of them are trying to improve the system, and to upgrade it for the benefit of the students' community as well as the educators' community.
And you'll never find all this in the mainstream media. Impossible to find any such information.
Yeah, like say for example, an interesting people which we have done is on this gentleman called Mr. Balu Ramchandran, who is offering upskilling programs for doctors, for fully qualified doctors, MBBS, postgrad doctors. That's so important. Upskilling of our medical fraternity.
Yes, upskilling, reskilling, enabling them to get new qualifications.
So highly recommend our people section. Now moving to international news section. Again, here we've got the major countries covered for you. What's happening in Canada, United States, UK, where there's a raging post-grad visa work debate happening. A special interest for Indian students, many of whom are postgrad students there, Dilip. And then in Greece, a very interesting story about how private universities have got the green light. And how there's
being encouraged.
Yes, encouraged, and how this strident opposition.
Which for Greece is like a revolutionary thing. And perhaps more than India.
Yeah.
So even they're opening up.
Yes.
So
and China again, quite a thought-provoking news from China.
Yes.
India is not alone in suffering high unemployment. China also there's high unemployment.
Higher youth unemployment.
Yes.
Educated youth unemployment. And there's some evidence emerging that, like India, there's a misalignment between education sector and industry.
Industry and academia gap.
Yes.
Now coming to our special report.
Yes. Our own initiative, Education World, together with the Boarding School Association of India, we had an Education Leadership Retreat 2024.
Yes.
The title of which was Empowering Change Makers and Transformative Leaders. Where, as I said in my introductory remarks, that we work on the premise that if you want to create good leaders out of students, the principals, promoters, etc., have themselves to be good leaders.
Absolutely.
And so we've got some very accomplished speakers and conclaves and panelists and others to address this question. How do you create great institutional leaders in our academic institutions?
Correct.
So that was a full report.
Yes, a full report. Like Dilip said, it was a 3-day residential leadership retreat.
Yes.
We had participants from across 16 states in the country, and we had a galaxy of highly knowledgeable, inexperienced education leaders sharing their life lessons in education leadership. So from how to empower teachers for classrooms of the future to how to build resilience in your leadership. We had the major themes of education leadership covered in these 3 days. Strongly recommend. And we strongly recommend that by popular demand, this is going to be a series. So the next one is going to be...
No, by popular demand, the next one we had to agree right there when to hold it. So the next one is in December in Varanasi. And again in Udaipur after that in March, right?
Absolutely. So we highly recommend that, when these announcements come, keep a lookout on educationworld.in and register for them so you don't miss out.
Yes. So remember that if you want to create leaders, you have to be a great leader yourself.
Indeed.
Then we have a good teacher-to-teacher piece written by Venunathan Pillai, who's now a consultant, a former headmaster of several schools, now a consultant based in Kollam in Kerala, where he talks about, he says it's very important to not to ignore artificial intelligence and not to pretend it doesn't exist.
Yes.
He says you have to teach it to children because it's going to become increasingly important as you go along. And he talks about the various genres of artificial
intelligence. No, it's a very informative essay. And
then,
in our interview section,
yes,
interesting interview with Mr. Yogi Kuchera, who is the founder of the YOL app and
Kochar, yes.
Happiness Foundation.
Yes. And he's on the board of the Happiness Foundation in America, and he's founded a thing called YOL, that is You Only Live Once Foundation in India. And he has a very interesting theory. The minds of our children are being colonized by the Western megacorps who fill it with all kinds of, reels, video reels, which
The
are all
social
rubbish
media.
actually. And most importantly, they're taking away the time of of children and adults also from doing productive work. They're taking them into mindless watching of reels, and he describes it as a new kind of colonialism.
And in our book review section, two good book reviews. One on Chetan Bhagat's latest book, 11 Rules for Life. And then other one is...
Chetan Bhagat, as you all know, of course, is the very well-known public intellectual and a columnist and author, novelist. And according to I think The Economist is quoted here as being one of the the most widely read English language author in India.
Yes.
So he's written a new book called 11 Rules for Life, The Secrets of Leveling Up. How to move up the socio-economic ladder.
Yes.
Quite very interesting.
Yes, and the second book review is on Party of One, which is on the Chinese premier.
Yes, a biography of Xi Jinping, the Chinese president. And many people don't like the Chinese, but they are our neighbors, and we've got to find a way of living with them and having
living with them and working with them.
Yes.
Postscript section again, some exciting news
well,
and exciting takes
yes.
on corruption, on Sam Pitroda.
In our opinion, corruption in Karnataka especially is now gone runaway. It's a runaway corruption. And then Sam Pitroda recently told some truths about the unity in diversity, which created for mysterious reasons, created a big furore. And the third one warns about make sure that socialism, we give a case history of a project which was approved by the Planning Commission of the old days in 1962, and that project is still under construction. That's the pace at which socialism moves.
Yes.
So we warned against, don't allow a backdoor entry of socialism into the country.
Indeed. Anyway, that's Education World for you. Information-packed, insightful essays.
And you won't get what we just talked about anywhere else.
Indeed. But before we go, Dilip, should we tell them what we've got in store for them in ParentsWorld?
Yes.
So in ParentsWorld, the new academic year has just begun across the country. So we've done a very, I think, a timely cover story on enabling kids to shine bright in the new academic year. So we've given parents some very useful advice on how they need to, psych their children to succeed.
Yes, and enable them, not push them. That we are very careful about that.
Yes.
Like we should reiterate that one of the reasons why we started EducationWorld and ParentsWorld is that the education experience has to be an enjoyable, enriching experience for children, which I think over the last two or three decades has stopped being. It's become like a heavy burden, a veil of tears. I don't think that's necessary. And both Education World and ParentsWorld are driven by that commitment. Is to, if you really want children to learn, make education an interesting, enjoyable experience for children, and
Absolutely.
They will learn. Well, that's all.
That's all. Look forward to hearing from you all. Thank you.